Welcome back to the channel, everyone. In today's video, we're going to be doing a full tutorial of the Power Etrade platform. This is actually the web-based version of Etrade and is not to be confused with the Etrade Pro Trading Platform, although I will make a video on that one later down the line. This one doesn't have all of the features or customization options like the downloadable version, but I am actually a pretty big fan of it so far. Now there is a lot to cover and this is probably going to end up being a long video, so feel free to check out those timestamps down below if you guys do need to jump ahead to a specific topic. But jumping right into it, let's first go over how you can even access this platform and get it pulled up. To do that, we do need to head over to the etrade.com website and get logged into our account. As soon as we get logged in, we should see a page that looks a whole lot like this, but if not, all you have to do is come up here to the Complete View tab and go ahead and click on that. Once you do, you just need to look on the right-hand side and find the Launchpad icon. Right below Launchpad, you're going to see the Power Etrade Platform, which is actually the real version of our account where we could place real trades in Power Etrade. And then right below that is the paper trading version, which is actually the one we're going to access today to get some practice in without risking our own money or putting our own money on the line. So to do that, let's just come over here to the launch button next to paper trading and go ahead and click on that. As soon as we do and we open up Power Etrade, you should see a screen that looks a whole lot like this. And I know it's a lot to look at, there's a lot of flashing numbers on the screen, but don't worry, I'm going to break this down as simply as I possibly can. Starting off with, this page is kind of broken out into three separate sections, starting with the side panel on the left-hand side. Now that side panel is customizable, you can change the information that's being displayed on there, but starting off with, you can see an account info section at the very top. That account info box is simply going to tell us what is our account worth right now, how much buying power do we have, and how much margin do we have available to us. Right below that is a positions widget telling us what current positions we have in the account, what we bought those positions for, and how they're currently doing. The last thing in that side panel is going to be an order book telling us all of our recent trading activity in this account right now. Moving off of that side panel and looking to the right a little bit is going to be our main screen, the screen that we're going to be looking at most often in this platform. Right now, if you look up at the very top of your screen, you can see I've got the trading tab selected, and right now I'm on the quotes page. Now at the moment, I do have Apple in this little search box on the left-hand side, so at the moment, it's showing me exactly how Apple is doing today. Was it up? Was it down? I can see a little chart of Apple, and I can see some basic fundamental data on the right-hand side. If I wanted to change that, I could always come over here to a charts page and get a much more expanded view of the chart for Apple. If I instead wanted to look at an option chain for Apple or buy and sell some options contracts on Apple, I could always come over here to the options tab, and then you can see it flips over to the option chain down below. I also have the ability to analyze hypothetical trades using the Trade Lab button, although we probably won't stick on that one too much today. But other than the trading tabs up at the top, you also have the Markets tab and the Accounts tab. But these are going to be your navigational tabs, how you're going to get around the platform, using the trading buttons, the market buttons, or the account buttons. Moving on from that, you also see a panel on the right-hand side, which, just like the left-hand side panel, is customizable. You can change the information that's being displayed over there on the right-hand side. Now at the moment, you do see I've got some quick trade buttons, so I could very quickly go in or out of a current position. Right below that, I've got a watch list of stocks I want to keep track of. And then finally at the very bottom is news articles that have come out recently. So now that you guys have a basic understanding of how to actually navigate around this platform, let's jump into some of the important stuff, things I actually think you need to know how to do in here. The first thing we're going to go over is how we can actually create and customize our watch list in this platform. To do that, we're going to come over here to the Markets tab, and we're going to make sure we've got the watch list tab highlighted. Once we've got that selected, you can look down just below that and see what watch list we're currently looking at. At the moment, it's a watch list called Default Watch List, and right below that, we can see all of the symbols in that watch list. At the moment, we're keeping track of companies like Apple, AIG, Citigroup, GM. To the right, we can see what the current bid and ask is, what its current mark price is, its mark change for the day, percent change, and volume. If we wanted to change the watch list that we're looking at, we would simply click on the name up here, Default Watch List, and select one of our other ones. In my case, I only have one other watch list. It's called Test Watch List, and if I were to click on that, you can see I've got only 4 companies in here: Facebook, Netflix, Microsoft, and Apple. If I wanted to add additional companies to this watch list, I could simply come down here in the lower left-hand corner, click in this little search box, and type in the symbol that I want to add. For this one, let's say I also wanted to add Square. We'll go ahead and type in SQ and hit enter. And let's say I also wanted to add, let's say Palantir, Rocket, and let's just say Coin for Coinbase. And there we go. I've just added 4 additional companies to this watch list, and now I can see all of the current information about those companies. But let's say I actually wanted to create a brand new watch list. I wanted to create a tech companies watch list. So what I'm going to do is come over here to the 3 little lines or 3 little dots in the upper right-hand corner of our watch list. From there, as soon as you click on it, you are going to see a little drop-down menu that says Edit Watchlist, Select Columns, and Add a New Watchlist, which is actually the one we're going to click on in this example. From there, as soon as you click on it, you can see a little box pops up here in the upper left-hand corner, which is where we're going to type in the name of this watch list. For this example, I told you I wanted to make a tech companies watch list, so we're going to go ahead and name it Tech Companies here. And we're going to go ahead and hit save because we're happy with that name. From there, you can see my tech companies watch list has been made, but I don't actually have any symbols in here yet. So let's come down here and start adding a few. We're going to go ahead and add Apple. Let's also do Microsoft and, I don't know, Netflix, let's say. And there we go. I now have 3 companies in this brand new watch list. And also, now that I've actually created a watch list here, I could always access it over here on my side panel now. And currently it says default watch list, but if I clicked on that, you can see those other 2 watch lists that I've made, test watch list and tech companies. Once I go ahead and click on tech companies, you can now see Apple, Microsoft, and Netflix. And I can also add symbols down here below as well if I wanted to add, let's say, Facebook to this list as well. Now, once you're happy with the symbols that you have in here, you might also want to change the column headers up here, basically the information that's being displayed about these companies. At the moment, you do have a lot of good info up here by default, but let's say you wanted to add some stuff. To do that, all we have to do is come back up here to the 3 little dots in the upper right-hand corner. From there, this time we're going to find the Select Columns tab, and we're going to go ahead and click on that. As soon as we do, the column selection window pops up, and we can see all of our current columns on the right-hand side, and all of the columns we could add on the left-hand side. Now, let's say you are an options trader, and you also wanted to see, let's say, IV rank. Let me try and find it here. There we go. All we're going to do is go ahead and hit the plus sign, and we're adding it to our right-hand side here. Let's also say you wanted to see its performance over the past 12 months, and right here, performance 12 months, we'll go ahead and add that one as well. And now that we're happy with those 2 additional columns we just added, let's just go ahead and hit save. And there we go. We can now see all of the columns we already had before, but we also have IV rank and the performance for the trailing 12 months up here as well. Now, later down the line, let's say you decide you wanted to get rid of those columns. All you have to do is come back up here to the dots, go to select columns, and click on the X button next to it to get rid of those if you don't want to see them. And there we go. They've just been deleted. Now, I do want to mention you also have the ability to put the columns that you find important down here on the side panel as well. This time, you just need to click on the 3 little dots next to this watch list and then say select columns. From there, you can see all of my current columns, mark change, mark percent change, 52-week high and 52-week low, but you can add whatever columns you find important over here on the left. Now, once we do save it, you'll notice that I actually can't see all of those columns I added right here, so I do have the ability just to drag it over and see those other ones. Or I could widen out the side panel, make a little bit of room to actually see that piece of information over here. But you can see creating a watch list in here is actually pretty easy. It's pretty easy to customize it as well, and that's how you do it. But I think you guys get the idea. It's actually pretty easy to create and customize a watch list in here. So let's move on from that. Let's move on to placing trades next. Now, to start off with, I will say there are many different ways to place a trade in this platform, and you can pretty much do it on every single screen that you're looking at. One way to always do it is simply find the trade button up here in the upper right-hand corner. In the case of a paper trading account, it does say paper trade here, but all we would have to do is click on that. As soon as we click on it, an order ticket will automatically come up, and in this case, since we do have Apple pulled up, it is an Apple order ticket. If we wanted to change it to a different ticker, we would simply highlight it here and type in the stock that we want to trade, but in our case, let's just leave it as Apple. And right below that, we can see the action that we're about to do. In this case, it does default to a buy ticket. But if instead we wanted to short shares of Apple in this case, we could always flip that over to sell instead of buy, or we could flip it back to buy, since in this first example, let's just say we want to buy some stock. Just to the right of that, we can see the quantity of shares that we're about to buy. In this case, it says 10, but if we wanted to change that, we would just highlight it and type in the amount of shares we wanted to buy. In this case, you can see I flipped it over to 50 shares, but you can put in whatever quantity you want in there. Right below that, you can see the order type that we currently have selected. In this case, it is a limit order, which just means we are specifying a price. If we wanted to change that, all we have to do is click on the word limit, and we can see all of the different order types right down below. Now, there are quite a few, but we're just going to go over the ones I think you're going to use most actively in this platform, and we'll start with a market order. Now, a market order simply means we want this trade to fill immediately, and we'll take whatever the current price is. Just get me those shares. So if Apple's current ask is $164.80, you're probably going to fill right at $164.80 when you're buying. If you were selling shares, you're going to fill instantly, and you're probably going to sell it right here at the bid, $164.77. You're basically saying, I'll take whatever the current price is, just give me those shares. Now, in the next example, let's say you didn't want the shares immediately. You actually wanted to specify a price. That would be a limit order. So let's go ahead and flip that over to limit. Just to the right of the word limit now, you have a price box, which is where you can specify the price you want to buy these shares at. Let's say we only wanted to buy some shares of Apple if it dropped down to 160 even. So we're going to go ahead and highlight that and type in 160. And there we go. Now keep in mind, with a limit order, there is no guarantee that you will ever get filled, because there's no guarantee that Apple will ever drop down to 160. But that's what you're telling the system right now. Only buy these shares of Apple if we can get it for 160 or lower. The last one we'll talk about in today's video is going to be a stop order. So we're going to go ahead and click on the word limit here and switch it over to stop on quote or stop market. Now, a stop order will typically be used when you already hold the position and you want to get out of it before you lose too much money. So let's say in this example, we already have 50 shares of Apple and we want to sell it if Apple ever drops below, 150. So what we would do is flip this over from a buy order to a sell order, because we want to get out of it if it drops below 150. So we're going to change that activation price to 150 here. And there we go. Now, moving on from that, let's actually flip it back over to a limit order so we can talk about the time and force box next. And we'll flip it back over to a buy ticket. Now, the last thing we'll look at in this order ticket right here is the duration or time in force, which currently says a day order. That's simply how long and when you want that order good for. At the moment, you're saying I only want this order ticket good from 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. Central Time. If this order ticket does not fill by 3 p.m., just go ahead and cancel it. So if you wanted to extend that, let's say you wanted this order good until canceled, you wanted to try every single day to buy some shares of Apple at 160, we could go ahead and click on the word day here. And right below that, you can see a GTC order or good until canceled. That would simply mean you want to try and buy these shares of Apple every single day until it fills. So if it doesn't buy it today at 160, try again tomorrow. Doesn't happen tomorrow, try again the next day, and so on until it actually fills or until you cancel it. Now in E-Trade, you can see it's not truly a good until cancel order. You can see right here it says 60 days max. So you would have to come back in here after 60 days and replace it, but that's what a good until cancel order is for. Right below that, you can also see a GTD order or good until date. That's basically the same as GTC, except you're going to specify an end date for it. Now for this example, we'll just leave it as a day order. Let's say we're happy with everything. We're about to buy 50 shares of Apple at a limit price of 160 or better, and it's just good for the day. If we wanted to submit this, we'll just come down here and hit the preview button in the lower right-hand corner. From there, it's just going to give you a little confirmation screen, just making sure everything looks right, telling us we're about to spend $8,000 on this trade, plus a $695 commission. So this would be the total cost of this transaction. If we actually wanted to place this, we were happy with the order, we would just come down here and hit send. And there you go. The order ticket has been placed. We can see the confirmation right here, and we can see it over here on our order book on the left-hand side. Now, in our case, since the market is closed, you can't see it as a queued order, so it's not going to do anything until the market opens back up tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. But as soon as it does, this order ticket will go out there to buy 50 shares of Apple at 160 or lower. Now, like I said, there are many other ways to trade stock in this platform, so let me go over one more example here. Let's go ahead and X this out of here. Looking at my watch list here, we can see 4 different stock tickers, but we can also see the current bid and ask for those stocks as well. In this platform, anytime you click on a bid or an asking price, it will generate an order ticket. If you click on the ask, it'll generate a buy ticket. If you click on the bid, it'll generate a sell ticket or a short ticket. So let's say in this next example, we did want to buy 100 shares of Facebook. We'll come over here to the current asking price for Facebook, and we'll click on that number, 202.69. As soon as I do, you can see it brings up an order ticket to buy 10 shares of Facebook at a limit price of 202.95. Just like before, if we wanted to change that, we would simply type in the number of shares we wanted to trade. In our case, we're going to type in 100. We only wanted to buy it if it dropped down to 200, let's say. So we'll go ahead and type in 200 here. And now that we're happy with it, we'll come down here to review it. We'll make sure everything looks right once it finally opens up. And in my case, it looks good. So we're going to go ahead and send that order out there. And there we go. We can see the order ticket has been submitted, but just like in the previous case, it has been queued, so it's not going to do anything until 8:30 tomorrow morning once the market opens back up. Now, the last example of trading stock in here that I'll go over is these little trading buttons over here on the right-hand side. Now, in this case, you do have to be mindful of the stock that is currently in here. So right now I've got SPY and SPY at the moment. So let's say I wanted to change that to, let's say I trade Apple frequently, as well as Microsoft. So I'm going to go ahead and throw in Apple and Microsoft in these boxes here. And now what it's saying is anytime I click on these buttons, I can buy or sell shares of Microsoft or Apple anytime I want. Now at the moment, it will still give me order confirmations because I don't have this auto send button checkmarked. But if I did, anytime I clicked on buy market or sell market, those order tickets would be instantly submitted. So this one's much more straightforward. Here I can see I've got Apple, I've got 10 shares of it, and if I were to hit buy market, an order ticket would be submitted to buy 10 shares of Apple at the market price. Since I don't have auto send selected, it did give me this little order confirmation screen, but if I wanted to get rid of that, I would just come up here and check mark auto send. So you can see there are many different ways to trade stock in this platform, but really it's just whatever makes the most sense for you, whatever way you want to do it. Moving on from that, let's say you actually decided to cancel those working orders or to edit them in some way. Well, there are a few different ways you could do that as well. Starting with the order book over here on the left-hand side, we could simply click on the thing that we want to change. So in the case of Facebook right here, let's just go ahead and click on that. From there, you can see a little window pops up over here on the right asking us what we want to do. From here, we could either choose to outright just cancel the order, we could modify it, or we could copy it in some way. In my case, let's say I just want to cancel this order. So all I'm going to do is come down here and click on the cancel button. It's as simple as that. We can now see that that order ticket has been canceled to buy 100 shares of Facebook. But let's say next I actually wanted to edit this order on Apple. I no longer wanted to buy 50 shares at 160. I wanted to drop it down to only 25 shares. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and click on it just like before. This time in this little pop-up window here, I'm instead going to click on the modify button. From there, it brings up an order ticket just like before, and in this example, all I have to do is change it from 50 shares to 25 shares because I wanted to bump down the quantity a little bit. I'm still happy with it being a limit order at 160, and you know what, I'm also going to change it from a day order to good until canceled. So we'll flip that, and now that I'm happy with all of the changes, we'll go ahead and hit preview, and I'll hit send because I'm happy with this confirmation screen. And there we go. We can see my previous trade to buy 50 shares has been canceled and replaced with an order to buy 25 shares, and it's also been adjusted to a good until cancel order. Now I could have also done this exact same thing by coming up here to the accounts tab at the very top here, and I could do it from my order screen right here just by clicking on it just like before. However, instead of getting a little pop-up window, I would instead come over here to the far right-hand side and either cancel it, modify it, or copy it. But again, I could do that from account and the orders tab. But I think you guys get the overall idea of how to place equity trades in here and how to cancel or edit them in some way. So let's move on to trading options next. So to do that, we do need to come back up here to the trading tab. And this time we need to come over here to the option chain. So now that I've got this opened up, let's actually get rid of this little order ticket here. And now we can see an option chain for Apple down below. And just as a reminder, if you ever want to change the symbol that we're looking at here, you simply need to come up here to the upper left-hand corner and then type in the symbol that you want to flip it to. In our case, we'll just go ahead and leave it as Apple, and let's go ahead and dive into how to actually read this option chain and place trades in here. To start off with, at the very top here, you can see some basic stock information. So in our case, we can see Apple last traded for $164.32. It was down $2.98 today and down 1.78% overall. Looking over towards the right-hand side, we can see some relevant options information like the current IV rank, current IV, and current IV change for the day. And then finally, right below that, we can actually see the option chain itself. And up at the top here, we can actually see the dates of expiration. So right here, 25 February, 4 March, March 11th, and so on. And you should have noticed as I clicked on it, it did open up the option chain down below here. So you'll see if I uncheck them, those option chains disappear. And as I select them, they open back up. You may also notice that some of these options expirations are in purple, some of them are in white, and that's just denoting the weekly options versus the standard monthly contracts. So the ones that you see in white here are going to be the standard monthlies, the ones that are third Friday of every single month, and then the weeklies are going to be in purple. For those of you not super familiar with options, the really only difference between the weekly options and the monthly options is how long they have existed. So the monthly options expirations, for example, like April of 2022, that contract could have existed for years in time, whereas the April 1st of 2022, that's probably only existed for a week or so. And really the only practical difference between the two is going to be liquidity. So more people are probably trading the April contracts than the April 1st contracts. But otherwise, they're still going to expire at the same time. They still trade like one another. There's really no difference except for how liquid those contracts are going to be. Moving on from that, we can actually see the strike prices listed down here below. So 152.5, 155, 157.5, and you can see the calls on the left-hand side and the puts on the right-hand side. Now, the in-the-money options versus the out-of-the-money options are kind of denoted by this shading background. So the in-the-money options have this like kind of light purple background, whereas the out-of-the-money options have a darker background here. You also have the ability to change how many strikes you're viewing up here in the upper left-hand corner. So at the moment, I'm only looking at 10 available strikes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 right here. If I wanted to expand that out further, I would just come up here to the upper left and click on the strikes quantity of 10, and we could make that whatever we wanted. In our case, let's just flip it over to 20, and now I'm seeing 20 available strikes right down here in the middle. You'll also notice the column headers that I have up here at the top. Right now I've got probability in the money, volume, delta, gamma, theta, vega, and the current bid and ask for those contracts. If you want to change those column headers, put some information that you actually find useful there, all you have to do is come up here to the three little dots in the upper right-hand corner. Go ahead and click on that. From there, you're going to come down here to select columns. As soon as you do, you can see all of the current columns you have on the right-hand side and all of the columns you could add on the left-hand side. In my case, I'm happy with the columns I currently have, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit save here. And you can see I've got the same columns on the call side as well as the put side. And for me, I do have the ability to kind of drag and drop those where I see fit. If you want to be able to drag and drop them where you want them, you can always come back up here to the three little dots and make sure you have the unfix mode selected. If you have mirror mode selected, it's going to be a mirror image of one side or the other. I'm not a huge fan of that. Or for the left and right mode, again, not a fan of that. I just use unfixed and kind of drag and drop them where I want them. Now, in terms of actually placing options trades in this platform, it's actually very easy. Whenever you want to buy an option, you click on the ask. Whenever you want to sell an option, you click on the bid. So let's say in this first example, we wanted to buy a 165 call on Apple that expires on, let's say, March of 2022. And that's 24 days out, by the way. If we wanted to do that, we're simply going to find the strike price right here in the middle, the 165 strike. Since we want to buy a call option, we're going to look on the left-hand side and see it's trading for 470 by 480. Since we want to buy this option, we're going to go ahead and click on the asking price of 480. As soon as we do that, you should see an order ticket pop up just like before, except this time it's going to show us a lot more info right here than it did for the stock transaction. Right here, we can see we're about to buy one contract of the March 2022 expiration on the 165 strike. It is a call option, and we're using a limit order at a 475 limit price. Just like before, if you wanted to change anything, you would do it right from here. If you wanted to buy two contracts instead of one, just going to go ahead and highlight that and type in 2. If you only wanted to buy this contract, if it dropped down to $4, we would simply highlight the limit price and type in 4. Whenever you're happy with it, you actually want to submit this order to buy this call option, you would simply hit preview, make sure everything looks right in this confirmation screen, and let's say it does, you'd then just hit send. And just like with the stock, you can see that open order over here on the left-hand side in the order book. In my case, I don't want to place this, so let's go ahead and hit cancel. Let's not go through with that. Now, moving on from that, if we want to do the exact same thing on the put side, it's the exact same process. So let's say we, instead of doing the March 2022 options, we wanted to do the April 2022. From there, we can see April of 2022 is 51 days out, and let's say we wanted to buy the 140 puts and we thought Apple was going down. Looking here at the 140 strike and looking to the right at the puts, we can see those puts are trading for 159 by 169. Since we think Apple's going down and we want to buy it, we're going to go ahead and click on the current ask, $1.69. From there, you can see the order ticket once again to buy one of the April 2022 140 strike puts for $1.64 or better. So I think you guys get the idea. Buying and selling single leg options in here, pretty easy. So let's go ahead and cancel out of this and let's quickly go over how to do a spread. To do that, it's the exact same process. We simply need to click on the ask of the option we want to buy, the bid of the option we want to sell. So just doing a very simple option spread, let's say we wanted to sell a vertical put spread on Apple, so we're kind of neutral to bullish on it, and we wanted to sell the 140 put, so we're going to click on the bid of the 140. We're then going to buy a further out of the money put, creating the vertical put spread. So in our case, we're going to do it 10 points wide and click on the ask of the 130 put. You can now see looking down below, we're actually doing two separate transactions, but they're going to happen at the exact same time. We're going to be buying one of the April 22 130 strikes while simultaneously selling one of the 140 strikes. If we look in the upper right-hand corner, it does tell me exactly what this transaction is. It is a put vertical, and I'm going to be doing it for a total credit of 77 cents. Just like in the previous examples, if I wanted to adjust that, I would simply highlight what I wanted to change. And let's say I only wanted to do it if I could get, $1 for it. Go ahead and delete that out of there and type in $1. And now that I'm happy with it, we're happy with the credit that we're receiving. We could always come down here and click on preview. And now we can see the order confirmation just like before. You can again confirm we're about to sell one put vertical spread. We're going to be doing it for a $99.96 credit after including the commissions. And if everything looks right, we would simply hit send. And the order ticket has been submitted. Just like before, since I don't actually want to place this, we're going to come over here to the order ticket where it says a queued order here to sell a vertical put spread. We'll go ahead and click on that. And we're going to say cancel here. Now, I know I went through that pretty quick, and obviously options can be a little bit confusing, and learning a new platform for trading options can be confusing, but don't worry, I am going to make a separate, much more in-depth video on how to trade options in Power Etrade, but I think for right now that covers the basics. So let's go ahead and exit out of this. And the next thing we're going to go over is the charts page. So come on up here and click on the charts tab at the very top here. And now we're looking at a nice expanded view of Apple. At the moment, if we look at the time frame buttons up here at the top, you can see the time frame that I'm looking at. So at the moment, I'm looking at a 1-year chart, and it is a daily aggregation. meaning at the moment this chart is looking back an entire year of time, and each one of these green and red candles down here on the screen represent one entire day of trading. If I wanted to change that or change the time period or aggregation period that I'm looking at, I simply need to come up here to the time frame buttons and select the one that I want to go to. So let's say I only wanted to look at a daily chart for Apple. Let's say I'm a day trader. I want to get a much closer up picture. So what we would do is come over here to the Today button. Go ahead and click on that. You can then see that it automatically changed the frequency box or the aggregation box automatically to just 1 minute, meaning now each one of these green and red candles represent only 1 minute of trading. If I wanted to change that, let's say I wanted it to be 5-minute aggregations, I could come up here to the 1 minute box, click on that, and then select 5 minutes. So now my chart is not as cluttered as it was before, and if you didn't notice, I was zooming in and zooming out of this chart just by using the little scroll wheel on my mouse. If I want to zoom in, I scroll in with my mouse. If I want to zoom out, I scroll out with that little dial in the center. Now from here, you also have the ability to add additional studies to your chart. At the moment, all I have is the volume bars down at the bottom telling me how many shares were traded during each one of those periods. But if I wanted to add additional studies, I could always come up here to the upper left-hand corner and click on the Studies button right here. Once I do that, you can see all of my current studies. And at the moment, like I said, I've only got a volume study showing me how many shares were traded. But right below that, you can see my top studies, and there should be 10 in here. And if I wanted to see one, I would simply click on it. So if I wanted to see MACD down below, I just go ahead and click on MACD. It then shows me by default time periods that MACD is using and the color scheme it's going to use. But if I'm happy with that, we'll just hit save. And now you can see MACD down here below. If I instead wanted to use one that wasn't in that list, I could just come back up here to the Studies button and come down here to Manage My Studies. From there, you can then see all of the other studies that are available to us. And it is in alphabetical order here, but you can see my top studies right up here at the top. And by default, it's probably going to be the most popular ones, the ones you're probably going to use most often. But you can tweak these if you want to. Like, let's say you don't like to use stochastics, so we could just go ahead and click on that to get rid of it. And instead, you did like to use, true range. We could come over here to the T's and click on true range. And now you can see it's been added to my top studies, and now it shows up on the left-hand side here as well. From now on, if I wanted to add one of these studies, I would simply click on it. Like if I wanted to add the moving average line, I'm just going to go ahead and click on moving average. From there, to ask me what time period the moving average is referencing. In this case, it's the 50-period moving average. It's then asking me what type of moving average, so simple versus exponential, time series. Really, the only two you're probably going to be using are simple or exponential, but we'll go ahead and leave it on simple. And we can change the color of the line as well. So let's say we wanted this, instead of being red, we want it to be more of like a tealish color so we could see it. And if we're happy with that, we'll just go ahead and hit save. And now we can see the 50-period moving average on our chart now. Now there's obviously a lot more we could go over in the charts themselves, but really I think you should just play around with it a little bit, try and get a feel for it, and I think you'll get the hang of it pretty quick. Now, moving on from that for a second, let's come back up here to the main tabs at the top. We've pretty much gone in depth on the trading buttons. We talked about the quotes page. It's kind of just like an overall view of the stock that we're looking at. We talked about the charts page where you can see a much closer up look of what that stock has been doing over the time period that we select. We also talked about the option chain, how you can kind of customize it a little bit, how you can both buy and sell options in here. But let's also talk about the markets tab for a second. We mainly only focus on the watch list button right here where we can keep track of the companies that we want to keep track of, but you also have access to market view, which gives us a nice little peek at what the overall market is doing. In this case, we can see what the S&P 500 is doing, the Russell 2000, the NASDAQ, and the Dow Jones. In my case, I can see that the market had a horrible day today. Dow Jones was down 1.5%, S&P down 1%, so not the greatest of days. And I could also see the news tab up here at the top if I wanted to see some recent news articles and maybe see what's going on out there. Actually read this article if I wanted to. And then finally, I also have access to a calendar if I wanted to see some upcoming events. Right here, you can see all of the earnings announcements that are coming up. In this case, it's for the week, but if I wanted to, I could go to a monthly view and I can now see all of the earnings announcements that are coming up. Let's say I wanted to see earnings on the 24th after the market closes. We'll go ahead and click on that. And you can see there are a ton of companies announcing earnings on February 24th, right after the market closes. And we can have an idea of maybe some of those stocks that are going to have big moves in the after hours due to these earnings announcements. The last main tab up here that we didn't talk about was the accounts tab. I did mention that from here you can kind of see what's going on in your account right now. The first one being the orders tab. So these are all of the orders that I've placed today or canceled today. The positions page is all of the current positions in our account. In my case, you can see I've got Apple. I have 10 shares of it. And looking further to the right, you can see I paid $163.27 for it, and you can see how much I made or lost on these shares so far today. And this is where we can also close the position if we wanted to. So if I decided to sell out of this Apple position, I could always come down here and hold my mouse over these little icons here. The one I'm looking at is the close button. Looks like a little circle with an X through it. If I were to click on that, it will bring up a closing transaction to get me out of this Apple position. Here you can see I'm about to sell 10 shares of Apple with a limit price of $164.63. This is where I would put in the price that I want to sell it, how many shares I wanted to sell. But again, this is just a nice little overview of our current positions. You can also see other tabs like Market View, Portfolio Totals, Portfolio Analysis. If you notice, that just changes the information up here so we can keep track of what's going on in our account right now, maybe what are the indexes doing. You also have the ability to access the balances page to see kind of what is going on in your account, how much is allocated to stocks, how much buying power am I using, that kind of stuff. And then finally, you've got the Performance tab where we can actually see how our positions are doing, more laid out in a maybe easier to read format. In our case, you can see my total gain today was down 50 cents. So overall, I lost 50 cents. I lost 11 bucks on Micron today, but I also made $10.50 on Apple. Now, besides that, some big things I do want to mention is how to change some basic settings on this platform. So to change some of the settings, all you have to do is come up here to the little gear icon in the upper right-hand corner. From there, it's going to automatically take you to the user configuration pop-up window, and by default, it's your trading quantities. So how many shares do you want to automatically pop in your order quantity box? In my case, you can see my default trade quantities are 10 shares for stock, and then 1 options contract for options or spreads. Same thing for futures options, but this is where you could change it if you wanted to. You also have the ability to change the overall theme of your platform. So if you came over here to style settings, you can see my theme is currently dark, but if you wanted to flip that to light, you could always click on that, come down here to light, and change the overall appearance of your platform. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of the white background, so you could always come back up here and flip it back over to the dark settings, and then go ahead and hit save. But again, that's where you can change the overall settings of the platform. There's not a crazy amount of stuff in here that you could change, but this is where you do it. Now, the last thing we'll talk about, and it's something I forgot to mention earlier in the video, is how you can adjust the little widgets that are being displayed here, the information that shows up on each one of these side panels. Now, to do that, you're going to come back up here to the upper right-hand corner, and you're going to look just to the right of the settings menu. From there, you're going to click on the little widgets tab. It's then going to allow you to either add additional widgets or delete some of the widgets you currently have here. So let's say I actually wanted to get rid of this quick trade widget on the right-hand side. I don't find it useful. So let's go ahead and click on the trash can icon to get rid of it. We now have a big open space here that we could add something else. So what I'm going to do is click on the little plus sign here. And from there, you can see all of the different tabs that I could add, either a watch list, positions, news, market view, basically whatever it is that you like to see. In my case, let's say I just wanted to look at multiple different watch lists at the same time. Maybe I wanted to look at my tech company's watch list while also looking at my test watch list. So what I'm going to do is click on watch list here. And now that I'm happy with this, I'm just going to click anywhere outside of those to get rid of it. And now you can see I no longer have those big trade buttons on the right-hand side, but I do have an additional watch list. But you should have noticed that you could have done the exact same thing on the left-hand side panel as well. If we click on widgets, you'll see I've got that same customization over here. I can kind of move things, drag and drop them. I could always delete things, or I can add new widgets up here as well. But I know that was a lot and I didn't get to everything. I really just wanted to cover the things I think you guys would actually be using on a daily basis. But that really wraps up everything you guys need to know to get started on the Power Etrade web platform. I really hope that helped to answer all of the big questions you guys might have had, but if you guys do have additional questions for me or want to make a more, hyper-focused video on something, just let me know down below. Also, be sure to check back with the channel. I will be making more tutorial videos on different Etrade features on here, whether it be for Power Etrade or Etrade Pro. I'm going to try and get more and more familiar with it and make videos as I go. So make sure to subscribe if you want to stay up to date with those. But we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. I hope you guys all have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll catch you on the next video.